I could get your attention, please. The Alabama National Guard and Romania are celebrating the 30th anniversary of the State Partnership Program. The Senate is proud to host a delegation from Romania. The Minister of National Defense, Mr. Angel Tilvar. The Chief of Defense, General Daniel Petrescu, and Ambassador Andar Muharahu. We welcome you to the Alabama Senate. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, at this time, would like to invite Mr. Tilvar. Would you like to address the body? Yes. Go to them. Jess, if you can make sure the mic's on for him, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished member of the Senate, ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to be here with you and to address the Senate of the state of Alabama. I'm here in my capacity as Defense Minister of Romania, but I'm also an elected senator in the parliament. I believe in the power of parliamentary diplomacy, and I consider that it can play a unique role in our bilateral relations that can truly consolidate our strategic partnership. I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about Romania, the security concerns on the NATO eastern flank, and especially in the Black Sea region, as well as important aspects referring to our outstanding defense cooperation. It is also a symbolic moment when we celebrate 3 decades of state partnership program with the National Guard of Alabama, 30 years of excellent cooperation between the Romanian Armed Forces and the National Guard of Alabama. The transatlantic bond between our nations is indispensable to our security. We are bound together by common values: individual liberty, human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. There are worldwide known American personalities with a strong link to the state of Alabama that can be considered icons of freedom, democracy, human rights. Among them, Martin Luther King, Helen Keller, Rosa Parks. These are just some of them whose strong words are still relevant, especially in the very complicated times we are living in nowadays. Referring to all the implications of the ongoing Russia's war of aggression on Ukraine, it is appropriate to remember Martin Luther King's words. It is not enough to say we must not wage war. It is necessary to love peace and sacrifice for it. Esteemed senators, we see this time that our transatlantic bond is challenged by the Russian war of aggression on Ukraine that has dramatically changed the security environment, proving that Russia is the most significant and direct threat to the European, Euro-Atlantic, and regional security. We are now a 19-year-old member of NATO and 16-year-old member of the European Union. During these years, we have always advocated that the transatlantic link is of paramount importance. NATO membership, with the advantages of the collective security and defense umbrella, and the commitments and specific obligations in this extent, represents one of the pillars of the fundamental triad of Romanian security, alongside the EU membership and the strategic partnership with the United States of America. President Putin hoped to divide us, but he failed. Our response was firm and united. Both EU and NATO allies, Romania among them, have individually provided support to Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale war. At EU level, we took unprecedented steps in order to support Ukraine and sanction Russia. We salute the incredible results of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group under the leadership of the United States. We've shown the complete opposite of what Putin was trying to achieve. There is renewed drive and commitment to consolidate European strategic resilience with the United States' support. The European Council granted Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova the candidate status and also recognized Georgia's European perspective. Finland and Sweden have started the process of joining NATO that we hope to be completely very soon for both countries. We also see very clearly that the decisions we have taken to make our posture of deterrence and defense stronger and more efficient are extremely relevant for us all. I think this is an important unified allied effort in NATO's history, seeing NATO troops deployed to the eastern flank of the alliance to support security of every inch of allied territory. We commend the US steadfast contribution to consolidating the security in our region and reinforcing the deterrence and defense posture on NATO's eastern flank through a stronger US force posture in Europe, adding more air, land, maritime, cybers, and space capabilities. The robust US military presence in Romania, supplemented in 2022 with a 2nd Infantry Combat Brigade team under the 101st Airborne Division Command, was another proof of US solidarity and commitment to the Black Sea region security. We appreciate the excellent cooperation between our military forces, and we are eager to further substantiate it on all components, air, land, and maritime. At the same time, Romania is committed to further facilitating the proper conditions for all US troops deployed on our territory, according to our bilateral agreements and our willingness to further increase our interoperability. Romania is also proud to host the US Aegis Ashore Missile Defense System as one of the US most critical defense assets in Europe, an essential landmark of the US commitment to our region. We highly value the practical cooperation between US National Guard of Alabama and Romanian land forces. We participate together in various exercises over the past years, like Resolute Castle of Defender Europe, and in the annual CBRN combat readiness exercises, Guardian Mosque and Carpathian Dragons. We organize staff working visits and workshops, common training in Romania and the US, and supported the infrastructure development of our training facilities. A key field of cooperation through the State Partnership Program is air-to-air refueling, contributing to the training of Romanian F-16 pilots and maintainers. These are just some examples of our excellent collaboration. Dear colleagues, it is indeed a valuable partnership to us, and we are all working to strengthen it in new and innovative ways, contributing to our readiness and interoperability for future operations. We also place a premium on the cooperation of our Special Operations Forces, a relationship that has grown stronger and stronger since 2004 when it was launched. This bilateral cooperation is of great value for assisting the Romanian Special Operations Forces in achieving their goal to become a regional hub in this domain. Unity is our strategic advantage, and cooperation is a genuine investment in our security and resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in an era of unprecedented complexity and uncertainty, with new threats emerging all the time. The world has become increasingly multipolar, with rising powers challenging the rule-based order. This has led to increased geopolitical tensions, with the potential of conflict and instability. We must work to find ways to manage these tensions and promote cooperation and collaboration. Russia's growing regional aggression in the Black Sea region, in pursuit of a sphere of influence, is mimicked by China's evolving and aggressive policy in the Indo-Pacific, particularly the South China Sea, Taiwan Strait, and East China Sea. The end result of Russia's attempt to establish spheres of influence, or at least to deny other global actors a significant regional presence, will factor prominently in China's strategic calculus and future actions, particularly in aspects involving the use of transnational challenges as leverage in the geopolitical competition and attempts at rewriting the rules of freedom of navigation. We have already enough proof that what happens in the Black Sea doesn't stay in the Black Sea. As we look ahead to 2023 NATO summit in Vilnius, we need to work together for tangible deliverables and consistent decisions concerning Black Sea security. Thus, we believe there is an urgent need for a comprehensive, multi-domain Black Sea strategy under the US leadership, involving key actors in the region. We consider the developments in the Black Sea region and the US-European and Euro-Atlantic response will have a decisive role for the future of the rules-based international order and for credibility of Euro-Atlantic efforts in support of security, stability, and prosperity in other regions, including the Indo-Pacific, as well as in tackling other global challenges. I will not end my intervention without sending our gratitude to this Senate for supporting our 30-year-old partnership with Alabama National Guard, 3 decades of close friendship, cooperation, and even brotherhood. Thank you all. To conclude, I would like to mention that we need to continue all our common efforts and our fight to preserve our unity and shared values, our way of living, our democracy. I'm confident that we have the resources to face all the challenges in this security changing environment, and this event represents a real opportunity to share our understanding on common security challenges and to identify feasible solutions for a peaceful future. Thank you, dear colleagues, and God bless our peoples. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Alabama certainly is over to partner with you also in the future. Absolutely. All right, listen.
Thank you. And let me introduce the ambassador of Romania, sir.
Sure, absolutely.
Who I'm sure will be delighted to.
Yeah.
In the middle?
Let's go there.
Okay.
How are you? Hi. Yeah, Will Ainsworth. Pleasure to meet you. Great to have you in Alabama. General Gordon, come in. Ladies and gentlemen, the Alabama Senate will now come to order. Our prayer today will be delivered by Senator Garland Gudger. Senator Gudger.
Ladies and gentlemen, please bow your heads. Dear Lord, we come before you just to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for everything that you've given us, Lord. You gave us special attributes, each and every one of us, Lord, so that we can glorify your name on how we conduct business here, how we go forward to help Alabama, and as we just treat each other, how our tone and our voice treats each other, how people come in here into this state house, and that we take up the business of the people. We love you, Lord, and we thank you for that, to glorify your name in all that we do. And let us remember, let your will be done, not ours. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Senator Gudger. Today, the pledge will be led by Carter Ashcroft.
Attention, salute, pledge.
Thank you, Carter. Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott.
Hey, Buck, you get this in?
Ms. Figures.
Yes.
Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 30 senators present, which is a quorum. The Senate is ready to transact business.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move that we excuse absent senators.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move that we dispense with a reading of the journal from the previous legislative day and that we adopt said journal.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move that we be allowed to introduce bills any time during the day.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. I'd like to recognize some special guests in the gallery. First guest, or the guest of Senator Wagner. When I call your name, if y'all could please stand. The American Cancer Society and the Cancer Action Network. Welcome to the Alabama Senate. Got another group in the gallery. I'd like to recognize the guest of Senator Kelly, members of the Calhoun County Commission. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to the Alabama Senate. All right, now move on to introduction of bills.
Got one? Have you done that one, Jess?
All right, I'd like to recognize one more group before we get started. School board members from across Alabama here for School Board Advocacy Day. If y'all could please stand. Guest of all these senators. So, welcome to the Alabama Senate.
Senate Bill number 146 by Senator Melson relating to Lauderdale County is referred to the Committee on Local Legislation with notice and proof. Senate Bill number 147 by Senator Sessions and others relating to livestock is referred to the Committee on Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry.
All right. No help. All right, move on to committee reports. Secretary, if you could call the first committee.
From the Committee on County and Municipal Government, Senate Bill number 92 receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays. From the Committee on County and Municipal Government, Senate Bill number 142 receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
These bills received a second read and be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. Secretary, call the next committee.
From the Committee on Health Care, Senate Bill number 109 receives a favorable report with 1 amendment by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays. From the Committee on Health Care, Senate Bill number 28 receives a favorable report with substitute by a vote of 7 ayes and 2 nays.
These bills received a second read and be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. Secretary, call the next committee.
From the Committee on Local Legislation, Senate Bill number 3 receives a favorable report. From the Committee on Local Legislation, Senate Bill number 4 receives a favorable report. From the Committee on Local Legislation, Senate Bill number 38 receives a favorable report. From the Committee on Local Legislation, Senate Bill number 74 receives a favorable report.
These bills received a second read and be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. This concludes committee reports. Now move on to motions and resolutions. Any motions or resolutions? All right, no local bills?
Mr. President.
All right. Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a resolution
All right, Secretary.
relative to the killing of one of our finest.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution number 20 by Senator Butler and others, mourning the death and celebrating the life of Officer Garrett Coulter Crumby.
Mr. President,
Senator Butler.
can we have attention in the chamber? Mr. President, last Thursday, Huntsville had a very tragic incident in our city. 2 officers responded to shots fired at a apartment complex. Officer Albert Morin responded with Officer Garrett Crumby. Shots were fired from the upper apartment complex, killing Officer Garrett Crumby, critically wounding Officer Albert Morin. Albert Morin is still in critical condition in Huntsville Hospital. Officer Garrett Crumby was laid to rest yesterday. I would like to ask that all members of the Senate be added as co-sponsors of this resolution and ask that the resolution be read at length.
All right, any objection to all members being added as co-sponsors? Hearing none, so ordered. And Secretary, read the resolution at length, please.
Senate Joint Resolution mourning the death and celebrating the life of Officer Garrett Coulter Crumby. Whereas it is with profound sorrow that we note the death on March 28, 2023 of Officer Garrett Coulter Crumby of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa, Alabama at the age of 36. And whereas his passing leaves a void in the lives of his loving family, many friends, and the communities where he was highly regarded. And whereas Officer Crumby was born in Starkville, Mississippi on August 4, 1986 to William R. Crumby and Janet Sherman. He was their only son and the second oldest of 4 children. He was raised in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and was a 2004 graduate of Hillcrest High School. He was an outdoorsman who enjoyed kayaking, hiking, and storm spotting. And whereas Officer Crumby began his law enforcement career with the Tuscaloosa Police Department as a patrol officer and a field training officer. After 7 years, in August 2020, he joined the Huntsville Police Department in June 2022. Officer Crumby joined HPD's bike unit for the opportunity to combine his love for the outdoors with his desire to be more involved with his community. He hoped to become an investigator with the Financial Crimes Unit. And whereas Officer Crumby was well known for his compassion, positive attitude, humility, and ability to lift up those he worked with and served, he had a heart for service and was revered for his kindness. He understood that serving others as an officer was a commitment on and off duty. And whereas Officer Crumby will be remembered by his loving wife, parents, and sisters, as well as his friends and the communities he served. And whereas also, although his presence will be greatly missed, the memory of Officer Crumby will be cherished by all who knew and loved him. Now therefore be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that the death of Officer Garrett Coulter Crumby is recorded with deep sadness, and this resolution is offered in tribute to his life and service to others, along with heartfelt sympathy to his family, whose grief is shared by many.
Mr. President, I move immediate adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution is adopted. Thank you, Senator Butler.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
I have a SJR commending a couple in Prattville for winning the Daniel Pratt Industrialist Award.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the SJR.
Senate Joint Resolution number 21 by Senator Chambliss commending John and Ann Boutwell for winning the Daniel Pratt Industrialist Award.
Mr. President, I move for immediate consideration.
All right. Do you want it read at length? Okay. All right. All right. Any objection to immediate consideration? Hearing none, so ordered. All right, and then now we need it read at length, please.
Senate Joint Resolution commending John and Ann Boutwell for being awarded the inaugural Daniel Pratt Industrialist Award. Whereas highest commendations and congratulations are proudly presented to John and Ann Boutwell for being awarded the inaugural 2023 Daniel Pratt Industrialist Award. And whereas the City of Prattville Industrial Development Board established the Daniel Pratt Industrialist Award to celebrate visionary business leaders, companies, and organizations whose innovation and dedication have helped build a strong and vibrant community in Prattville and Autauga County. Whereas in the early 1990s, John and Ann Boutwell began their quest to preserve the rich history of Alabama's first industrialist, Daniel Pratt. Mr. Pratt introduced the Industrial Revolution to the South and had a tremendous influence on the culture of our state. And whereas in 1996, John and Ann Boutwell were instrumental in the campaign to revitalize and save historic downtown Prattville, they were visionaries who spearheaded plans for the 1999 Daniel Pratt Alabama Year of Industry celebration, which included exhibits, contests, and concerts throughout the year. Whereas today, there has been a tremendous growth in downtown Prattville, and particularly with the newest development, the Mill apartment complex, with sweeping views of the city's historic downtown, Autauga Creek, and the picturesque Mill Pond Dam. Whereas the 2023 Daniel Pratt Industrialist Award was presented to John and Ann Boutwell because without their perseverance, determination, and commitment to the community, Mr. Pratt's vision would have been lost forever. Now therefore be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that John and Ann Boutwell are honored and commended for winning the inaugural 2023 Daniel Pratt Industrialist Award, and this resolution is offered to them in deepest admiration and appreciation, along with sincere best wishes for all future endeavors.
All right, Senator Chambliss.
Mr. President, I renew my motion for immediate consideration.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution is adopted. Thanks,
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Chambliss. Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I have some resolutions reported favorably out of the Rules Committee.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolutions from Rules.
Thank you, thank you.
Senator Smithman.
Have we haven't been moved to take them up?
All right, we're on the first one. They're going to have to do them all individually.
Yes, sir. I want a request to be read.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
I'll withdraw my motion to introduce the resolutions.
From the Committee on Rules, Senate Joint Resolution Number 6, expressing support for offshore oil and natural gas leasing and development, receives a favorable report.
Mr.
President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of the resolution.
I request to be read.
All right, Secretary, read the resolution.
Senate Joint Resolution Number 6, expressing support for offshore oil and natural gas leasing and development. Whereas the purpose of this resolution is to strongly urge the President of the United States to consider the importance of maintaining a strong U.S. offshore oil and natural gas industry and support policies and take measures to ensure America's long-term energy affordability, security, and leadership, including actions that result in the continued development of our nation's offshore oil and natural gas resources, including those off the shores of Alabama. And whereas offshore oil and natural gas are vital components of our nation's economy, providing more than 15% of U.S. supplies, supporting over 300,000 jobs, and contributing to $4 to $5 billion to federal and state treasuries each year. And whereas U.S. energy abundance has historically contributed to the availability of reliable, affordable energy and increased energy security for the U.S. and its allies. And whereas U.S. citizens depend on natural gas to produce electricity, including the state of Alabama, which generates 37% of its electricity from natural gas. And whereas the world will continue to look to America for energy leadership, stability, and technological innovation, particularly in deep water offshore exploration and development. Whereas the state of Alabama, in accordance with the Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act of 2006, has received a total of $188,500,000 in royalties since 2009, receiving $34,800,000 in 2022. Whereas the U.S. offshore production is the main funding source for the Land and Water Conservation Fund that provides billions in revenues to federal, state, and local governments to support conservation programs, including $163 million to Alabama over the past 5 decades to protect many of the state's various preserves and forests. Whereas every U.S. state has business and jobs that are part of the U.S. offshore oil and natural gas supply and vendor chain, and whereas the President has yet to finalize a program for future offshore oil and natural gas leasing in federal waters or start the multi-state environmental impact analysis needed for lease sales to be held in 2024. Whereas U.S. offshore production is one of the lowest carbon-intensive energy-producing regions in the world, and halting offshore leasing and development will shift production and capital investment overseas and undermine decades of environmental progress. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of Alabama, both houses thereof concurring, that we, the members of the Alabama legislature, strongly urge the President of the United States to enact policies that will result in continued long-term American energy leadership, security, and progress, including promptly initiating the multi-cell environmental impact analysis and quickly issuing a robust 5-year offshore oil and natural gas leasing program that will allow lease sales to continue in 2024 beyond. Be it further resolved that the Secretary of State send duly authenticated copies of this resolution to the President of the United States, the United States Secretary of the Interior, the United States Secretary of Transportation, and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and the Alabama Congressional Delegation.
All right,
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
move adoption of the resolution.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. All right, any other motions or resolutions? All right. We do not have any local bills, so Senator Wagner.
Mr. President,
Senator Wagner.
I have a report from the Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary Reed received the report from the Committee on Rules. Thanks.
From the Committee on Rules, Senate Resolution Number 22, Special Order Calendar. Be it resolved by the Senate that the following bills in the order name shall be the special, paramount, and continuing order of business, taking precedence over all other matters until disposed of for the 5th legislative day only. On page 9, Senate Bill Number 16 by Senator Butler relating to the Board of Pharmacy. On page 3, Senate Bill Number 33 by Senator Livingston relating to motor vehicles and traffic. On page 8, Senate Bill Number 9 by Senator Chambliss relating to voting. On page 8, Senate Bill Number 10 by Senator Chambliss relating to electronic vote counting systems. On page 7, Senate Bill Number 5 by Senator Coleman Madison relating to the Board of Pardons and Paroles. On page 1, Senate Bill Number 22 by Senator Jones relating to emergency management. On page 3, Senate Bill 40 relating to local and county government by Senator Elliott. On page 2, Senate Bill Number 45 by Senator Barfoot relating to the boards of registrars. And on page 10, Senate Bill Number 66 by Senators Melson relating to cannabis.
Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, move that we adopt the report from the Committee on Rules using the short roll.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Need a roll. Long roll? Yeah. Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Milson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smithman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
28 ayes, 0 nays. The special order calendar is adopted. Secretary, call the first bill.
On page 9 of the calendar, Senate Bill Number 16 by Senator Butler relating to the Board of Pharmacy. BIR pending.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move adoption of BIR.
Using previous roll.
Previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
28 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 9 of the calendar, Senate Bill Number 16 by Senator Butler relating to the Board of Pharmacy.
Mr. President, Senate Bill 16 simply relates to the Board of Pharmacy to allow them to adopt rules and regulations relative to remote work.
Mr. President,
Senator Barfoot.
if I could, Senator Butler, I'm supportive of your bill. Thank you for the work that's gone into that. I think you know that My son-in-law is a pharmacist, and you know, especially during this COVID situation, we were able to get medications and to keep us from being caught up on with different illnesses, and the pharmacist prevailed and continued to do the hard work. I just want to make sure I didn't see anything in your bill about immunity. There's no immunity in there for pharmacists or immunity for pharmacies of any kind in there, is there? And I just want to make sure this is just a technical change, not one that would provide immunity to a pharmacist or immunity to a pharmacy. Is that correct?
Correct. No relationship to that at all. Totally different subject.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Move third reading of the bill, Mr. President. Use the previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
28 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 16 passes. Thank you, Senator Butler. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 3 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 33, relating to motor vehicles and traffic. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Livingston.
I'd move the BR use the previous roll with no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
28 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 3 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 33 by Senator Livingston, relating to counties and municipalities. Committee amendment pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Livingston.
move the adoption of the committee amendment using previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment is adopted. Senator Livingston.
Mr. President, this is a bill that allows counties to maintain the speed limit inside the city limits on property that they maintain rather than the city. And if there's no questions, I would move for final passage using previous roll with no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 33 passes. Thank you, Senator Livingston.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 8 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 9 by Senator Chambliss, relating to voting. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Chambliss.
move the BIR using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 8 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 9 by Senator Chambliss, relating to voting.
Mr. President, this bill stipulates that we will always use paper ballots in our elections. With that, I would move final passage using the previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 9 passes. Thank you, Senator Chambliss.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 8 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 10 by Senator Chambliss, relating to electronic vote counting systems. BR pending.
Mr. President, I move BIR using the previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 8 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 10 by Senator Chambliss, relating to electronic vote counting systems.
Mr. President, this also is an election-related bill that says that we would not have modems in our voting machines. With that, I move final passage using previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 10 passes. Thank you, Senator Chambliss.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 7 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 5 by Senator Coleman Madison relating to the boards of pardons and paroles. BR pending.
Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move BR using previous role.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 7 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 5 by Senator Coleman Madison relating to the Board of Pardons and Paroles. Committee amendment pending.
Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move the amendment that was put on in the House so that it would be identical. Without objection, use the previous role.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Previous roll.
Would you like to use previous roll?
Yes, sir.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment is adopted. Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is offered by Pardons and Parole. Basically, what it does is establish one female residential center to house the women for training. This is the same model as we have with the Perry County Award, a facility housing up to about 100 participants, looking at a limit of 90 days. It's a reentry program to cut down on recidivism, to provide the resources there for residential, for training, and those types of training for transition as these women get ready to be reentered into society. And that's basically what it does. So if there are no questions, I'd like to move final passage as amended.
All right, Senator Coleman Madison, you got the mic. Do you yield? I think there's a question.
Senator Gavan, do you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Senator. I'm sorry. I've been sitting here reading somebody's immunity bill and I got distracted. But is this the Thomasville facility?
It's the Clark County facility.
That's Thomasville. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
And this is the one that went through judiciary, not, I guess, last week, this bill we did this go through judiciary?
This is the same one that is offered by Pardons and Parole Director Cam Ward. They want to establish the same type of facility for reentry and training so that there's no place for the women. You know, we have one facility at Tutwiler for the women. There's nothing as far as them being, and it'll provide all the mental health resources and everything at one site. And this is a 90-day reentry type of program where they will receive training so that when they go back out in society, they'll have some skills that they can rely on.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no...
All right, Senator Coleman Madison, you got the mic. Do you yield?
Yes, sir.
All right, Senator Bell.
Maybe I missed what he was. There was no immunity issues in this bill, right? I thought I heard him say immunity.
No.
Okay. Just making sure.
Thank you. I'll now move for final passage using previous role.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 5 passes
Thank you, Mr.
amended.
Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Coleman Madison. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 1 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 22 by Senator Jones relating to emergency management. BR pending.
Mr. President.
Senator Jones.
Move adoption of the BIR using previous role.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 1 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 22 by Senator Jones relating to emergency management. Committee amendment pending.
Mr. President, I'll yield to my colleague. He has a question, I believe.
All right, Senator Elliott.
Mr. President, I just wanted to ask, are there any immunity issues with this bill?
Not at all,
Thank
Senator.
you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Elliott. Senator Jones.
Mr. President, this bill deals with strengthening local emergency management, adjust the CLEM certified director's total salary. So if there are no questions this time, I'd move for final passage using previous role.
All right, we are on the amendment right now.
Excuse me, move to adopt the committee amendment.
Using previous role?
Using previous role, please.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton? Yes, sir. Mr. Williams?
29 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Jones.
My colleague, do you have a question? I'll be happy to yield to you.
Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit. As these questions, I know I'm gonna get brought back in the middle of the lane by the secretary because it's a word called germane. So I know. I thought I'd pre-tell him so he could smile. So if it comes, then I take it with a smile. But
Senator Smitherman, you're always germane. So.
Thank you. Now, what does this bill do? And I'm gonna tell you why I'm asking you. Okay. See, I had to say all that to keep it germane. I'll tell you why I'm asking you because I think that you are a good.
Yeah, tell it to Sonny.
I think you are a good man. I think you are a good senator, but I done start getting scared now.
I understand.
Now, you know how folks, what some people say they are scared, and some say they're scared. I'm getting a little scared because you got them little occupation tax bills, and I be watching you now. I'm getting nervous, so I was standing there talking, and then when I kind of was more engulfed in the conversation until when I looked over there, I heard your voice. I didn't have to see your face. I know that voice. I said, uh-oh. I said, let me go up here and talk to him. I said, because I don't want to look up and my little cities be bankrupt because the little income be gone. And there ain't no other means of replacing it. You know, there used to be a rule, not written rule, but it used to be a rule, and it was this: for every tax quote break or tax cut that you give over here, that we would have found revenue of the same amount over here, whether it's created new revenue, like the internet tax bill, which we created new revenue, or whatever it is, but we will create new revenue. Okay, so tell me what this bill does. But you see what I'm coming from now. We talking about cutting something out over here, and we ain't said nothing about how we gonna backfill it over here. And the last time I looked now, I'll stand being corrected and adjusted, okay? I'll stand for, all right, but the last time I looked, the state of Alabama was not given a constitutional amendment that we can print money. So all the only money that we have to operate on is the money that we collect, okay? We collect from taxes or fees or license or whatever we collect it from. Now, having said that, and let me say this to you, in your fine city that you represent, I just happen to have graduated from college with two of your fine, outstanding citizens. Okay, one of them runs a license school, a driving license school. The other one used to actually be on the city council. And I'll call her name, and then you a last name. I ain't gonna call her first name, but Miss Howard. You ever heard of her? Okay. So I had to say that to you so that everybody know that we're talking relevant conversations, about real people. And several other people that I know just knew through when I was going to college. They was from that area, and they still live in that area now. We have reunions from time to time, so you see them. And they are, listen to this here. This word I'm gonna use again. They are scared because they're gonna lose 30% of the revenue, and they're scared. They don't see nowhere that it's gonna be backfilled, and I was talking to somebody else, and they gonna talk about, and this was somebody else, not you, but this was somebody else said. They said that, Well, they just got to tighten the bootstraps. Well, let me say this. Have you remember growing up? I know you do, because you're a man now, but you were a boy just like me. I'm a man now, I was a boy. When we were boys, you had that favorite pair of tennis shoes, and you don't wear them tennis shoes so much that you know how to string. You know how you string your shoes up. Just like these I got strings, and then you mess around and you string them, so pull them up so tight, and you string them that you break. It break, on one side. You know how it is, because you got to twist it to get it back in the little ring and whatnot. Well, the problem is when that happens, the one that breaks, you can't grab a hold to it because it's short. It's broke right at the ring. All right? So that's what I'm just trying to tell you about this situation. It ain't no strap to grab. You can't pull yourself by no bootstrap there where there's not a strap there to grab. So if we're going to lose revenue over here, they can't grab back and do something if it ain't nothing there to grab. And so that's why you see me when I saw you up here, because even though this bill does not exactly, address into that, and I want you to tell me about this bill, but I had to share with you the concerns that made me come up here, because I wasn't sure about what we're doing up here, because sometimes that bills have what's called a nexus, That's why it's hard to fix what I may call, it's hard unless you really have reference service deeply involved. I'm not talking about just off the hip from the floor, something coming to your head, but it's hard to correct a bill that needs correcting. I won't call it a bad bill, but that needs correcting, because there's a section over here that you may correct, but it'll tell you to make reference to the section over here. You know what I'm talking about, section over here. And that section bring you back to what you tried to clean up over here. And so that's what concerns me about in this situation. I don't, you know it better than me, because you know the ins and outs. I don't now. I don't claim to know your stuff better than you. I just know the impact that it's gonna have, and it's gonna destroy. I know that's not your intent. I know that. I say that, and I'll say that to you. Where everybody is my witness. I think you a fine man. You have a compassion and a good heart. We've dealt with too many other things for me. In other words, you've been road tested. So you don't have to be tested with me. So we're talking issue, okay? I just want you to know that it's not anything else. But I'm just telling you, we're talking about, I had a chance to go to a Midwest town, and this town had lost a lot of industry. And in some of those areas where people who would be gainfully, be robust, robust neighborhood and community. I got a chance to go there on a little tour, and guess what I saw? I saw what I don't want to see in my cities because of losing this money. I saw tumbleweeds. You ever seen a tumbleweed? That's these weeds that, the wind has rolled them. You know how you might be in like a hayfield, you know what I'm talking about, or something. You got a loose thing and it just rolls them, and all of a sudden it don't be even now and smooth, but it be just like the wind, when the wind blows, it just rolls and blow them down there. That's what's called tumbleweed. You see some you remember old pictures used to be on TV, and you'd have Death Valley days. You remember that? Oh, yeah, you're not old enough to remember Death Valley days. How many people up there remember Death Valley days? Raise your hand. I see some hands going on up there. They know Death Valley days. That was back there when you had the riflemen, and all them people. Wagon train. and all that, you know. But tell me a little bit about this particular bill.
Well, thank you, Senator, and I really appreciate your concern for my district and talking about my other bill. Of course, if you want, we can just pass this one, then we can get unanimous consent. We'll just bring it up and just debate it right now if you want to. We can just go ahead and take that other one up. You want to do that?
No, I don't even want that bill to come up. Since you asked, no, I don't want that at all. I don't.
You seem very passionate about it. I'm just wanting to defer to you.
Yeah, I tell you what I do want to say about that. Since you asked did I want it, no, because if it did, I wouldn't be saying but one thing. Leave Jefferson County alone. That's what I was saying. Leave us alone. It's 67 counties. You got all these people can defend. They will be honorable men to defend their counties. So I know they will. So I'm not saying pick on their counties. I'm just saying leave Jefferson County alone, you know. But go right on, explain this bill too.
Sure. Well, I'd be happy to show you Jefferson County is not in that bill.
Okay, we'll talk. We'll get
that with you later. This deals with local emergency management, and it does several things in the Alabama Emergency Management Act. It increases the state salary supplement to 35% of the CLEM certified director's total salary, not to exceed $17,000 a year. It ensures county commissioners do not miss out on federal emergency management funds as a result of that salary increase. It establishes a process allowing contracts to be let without bidding during times when a delayed response would cause harm to an individual or public property. It allows the Association of Emergency Managers to provide recommendations for coursework. And also it encourages more collaboration among political subdivision when responding to emergencies. So it's largely a cleanup bill, but it does have some issues there with the salary.
So tell me again about that salary part, just that salary part.
So this ups the state supplement to 35% of the CLEM. So the CLEM is a certified local emergency management, CLEM certified director.
How much they make now? So before the increase?
Well, see, before, if the locals had upped the salary over a certain amount, they would have to pay more because the state portion would decrease, if I understand it correctly. So this fixes it and it sets the state portion. So if they want to give a bonus locally, it doesn't affect how all that moves. Does that make sense?
So we making a move back now that we can accept supplements independently, and there's no caps on supplements if that local entity want to provide a supplement. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is right now the salary is set at $40,000.
Right.
And $12,000 of that is the state.
Okay.
But if you wanted to hire a good candidate and you wanted to pay them more than $40,000, you want to pay them $41,000, then you have to pay an additional $13,000 rather than the one, because it basically knocks out the state. You lose the state salary supplement. So you're trying to do the right thing and give more money to somebody to hire them, because, you know, $40,000 for a certified employee is not really that much these days in a lot of places.
Okay, I agree with you. You know, hey, look, I'm gonna set your template right quick. I'm for giving the folk the money, more, because those are some hard jobs. Okay, hard jobs. What I'm concerned about though is that we are saying that the only way that they can give people more money is that they got to come up with the money to substitute what the state pays, and then they got to give above and beyond after they substitute what the state pays. I mean, that's almost like punishing them for wanting to give somebody a bonus. I mean, because I realize that take a county like Madison, You take a county like Shelby, take a county like Mobile, you take a county like Jefferson, and a few other counties. They might be able to kind of do what you just said. But you take some of the other counties that's running a deficit right now, but some kind of way comes up with some extra money, then they could probably give some extra money above the 40, above the portion they have to pay in the 40, but to penalize them, to make them having to pay all of the state's amount, then find that is no equity neither.
Sounds like you should have been a co-sponsor on my bill, Senator.
But but your bill, you correct me, okay. But your bill is saying, I think, your bill is saying that they got to pay the extra, they got to take up the state slack. That's what your bill is saying, isn't it?
It's the opposite. Right now, you have to take up the state slack. If you go over 40,000, you have to pay the full state portion.
And you're saying that they don't have to pay that amount.
This says if you go over that limit, it increases the limit first of all. But then if you go over that limit locally, you're just responsible for the extra. You're not responsible for the whole enchilada, to use a nice phrase or term there.
Now, let me say this. You know, we used to have local supplements. We used to have local supplements for our judges. Okay? We used to have local supplements for our judges. Then, when we for some reason, because there was a disparity in the areas who could not pay the same level of supplement that other areas were paying, then we decided that we were going to roll it all into one salary for that position, and that everybody was going to make that. Now it seems like we're coming back in a situation with the EMA people, and we are abandoning that approach, and now we want them to be able to get more if the local area can provide more. Why don't we do it on all the positions then? And I'm not talking about you personally, so you understand what I'm saying, but why are we picking and choosing? It was okay over here with the judges, and then we said, okay, no, it's not anymore. Now, but we're saying, let's open it up for the EMA people. I'm all for that. Now, don't get me wrong. I have to reassure you, as you hear me talk, you may have to wonder. You don't have to wonder. I'm for your bill, and I'm going to vote for it. Okay, so let's get that out the way. Okay, so that's out the way. All right, now we got that out the way. I'm still back on what I'm saying here. You know, I'm still saying on what I'm saying here. Now, the upside is this, about the supplement, because that's what we're talking about. Remember I said, I'm going to keep it nexus, keep it hooked up. We talking about supplements for EMA. I'm talking about judges, okay? All right, so we're talking about the supplements. But the difference between the two is this, is that we have to have the EMA to provide the necessary services, because usually it's people who are in trauma. They're not revenue generators, but they are life savers, okay? But they don't generate revenue. at all. Okay, they provide a necessary and critical service for people. But the difference is over here with the judges, you supplement, because I think we need 12 or something like that. You supplement a one-time supplement for the judges, they make 3 times the amount of money than you supplement them in the first year. They make money. It ain't no burden on us as a budget and we can't afford. This is an investment. And to know exactly how much that each one of them on the average produces, just take the total amount that the judiciary system provides for us in revenue in this state in the general fund, take the number of judges and divide it into that amount of money, and it'll tell you how many millions each one of them make. You see what I'm saying? Because they make money. Now, what I don't understand, in this situation, which I support, it's going to require to find and get additional revenue, okay, for the people who want to do that. Would you not agree with that? For the people who want to give that extra above that, they got to find money, right? Okay. But in this situation, the money is already there. 100 million. Not 100 million, 100. A lot of folks say, what do you talk like that for? For the people who don't understand that, that's a form of Ebonics. Okay, so I just wanted folks to know that I know what I'm saying because I'm just speaking in it. It's a little Ebonic. It's Ebonics, but I just say Ebony. Okay, so that's you see what the contrast. I don't understand it. You know, I can't figure out why we hadn't done that 3 years ago. You know. I was gonna say, I'm ready for him to stand up and come on over here and talk with me. That's what I was gonna say. but you got me on that one. but yes, let me do something right quick. Senator Stewart, could you come in for a minute? As I was saying, Senator, okay, I'm back. I did with y'all last. I paused, but so how much time? I know y'all probably started at 1:00 or something. 28 more minutes. Okay. Let me look at this clock. Let's see. Okay. I'm just measuring my time. That's all. How many more bills do we have? Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop in 28 minutes. Okay. I'm gonna stop.
You telling me there's light at the end of this tunnel, Senator?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop in 28 minutes.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna stop.
I can wait.
This was a note that made me stop in 28 minutes.
Sounds like I owe Senator Schofield a debt of gratitude.
No, the whole crew. You're the whole crew, not just one of them. You're the whole crew. But no. I want to tell you this. I heard that. I want you to hear this. I heard that on the news. What you're doing right now. I just want you to know that our news station had an article, and they had the EMA people, and they were talking about something similar, some other things. But this was something similar. That when I heard you say what you said, they didn't talk about it as elegant, as clear as you did. But it's hard to do that with a sound bite. You know what I mean? They had them on sound bites, but they was talking about increasing it. And I tell you something that we are going to have to, as a state, well, country really, but as a state, we gonna have to get ready to fork out a little more money for these workers. I mean, people don't like to hear this, but this is a workers' market. This is not an employer's market now, right now. It's a workers' market. And just like with our police officers, you know, we're gonna have to start some real good starting salaries for them. And you know, how much do they start now? Anybody know? What about in your area? See, that need to be up to around 55. Could be 60, but it needs to be up in the mid-50s. You know, if we gonna keep somebody, that's what I'm saying. If we gonna keep them, we need to do that. So that's the same thing with the EMA people. You know, we need to pay them, because that's a rough job. I'm just gonna tell you. I mean, you don't know what you finna run into. You know, you're there. You know, you got situations, and look at this situation here. You got a situation, they can take people to the hospital, and until that person get admitted in that hospital, what they got to do? They got to stay right there, don't they? They got to stay right there with them. So no, I think that, and let me just tell you this: have you ever went out on a patrol with them, Senator? Have you ever been out on an EMA ride with them?
Can't say that I have, Senator.
Okay, all right. Well, I hadn't been on a ride either, but let me tell you this. I've seen them at the end of the ride, okay? I've seen the trauma at the end of the ride. See, when I was in high school, I was an orderly. You know, back then they had LPNs. Now we have LPNs, but back then they didn't have LPNs. They had orderlies. And part of my work assignment through the week was that I worked in the emergency room on weekends, okay? And so I'm the one, not me personally, but I'm part of the crew that's receiving this trauma that these people have to go out to take care of. And that's why I said what I just said. It's hard enough on them as it is right now, and to get someone to stay and someone with the expertise these people have, then I think that it's imperative that we do what you're doing. I do. What else does the bill do?
You've got the main thrust of it there, Senator. I'm happy to pass you a sheet over. You can read to your heart's content or copy the bill.
What kind of, you got a sheet or something?
Yeah. What are you would you like some talking points, or you want the bill?
You
know, I learned.
Oh, you shifting it to me. We're not talking. That's fine.
One of the first rules I learned, you know, when I got here was don't help somebody else filibuster. That was a hard one to learn because I like to talk and engage, but I respect you, so I'm gonna let you just run with it, sir.
Now you don't want me to run with it now. Now you don't really want me to run with it. I know you have it's ways to stop me from running with it, but I know you don't really want me to run with it. Because if you want me to run with it, then I see a senator from Mobile that I'm gonna just ask her to come up. I'm gonna give it to her, and then I'm gonna have to give it right back to me so I can start my second hour after 28 minutes. So you don't really want me to run with it. If you do now, I will. If you tell me, Smellman, run with it, I'll run with it. So if you want to have me, you can bring me the notes, or I'll come get them if they'll pause. If you'll talk so I won't lose the mic or something, and I'll come and get them. You won't have to walk over here. I won't make you labor to walk. But if you feel like walking on your way to your seat, you can bring those notes to me, and I will make sure that everybody adequately understand your notes. Even though, you know, I can talk about like we talking, fill up time, but I'll do your notes for you. You won't even have to do any work. I'll do your own notes for you as if it was my bill. Yeah, and give you credit too. I won't try to act like it was, I get any credit. My credit because I'm gonna vote for it. Okay, so if you want to now, you want me to come get it, or you gonna, where your seat? Where's your seat at over here?
I'm confused whether you really want it or you don't really want it.
I want it.
I'm trying to figure it out.
I want it. I want it. I want it. I want it. Because I wasn't going to spend but an hour, the 28 minutes, but if you want me to do this, I'll do this. I don't mind it.
28's more than enough, Senator.
That's all I was going to do, a max of 28, but if you want me to do this here, this may take more than 28 minutes, and I'll be glad to do it. You know, I don't mind. You know, let me tell you something. Let me tell you why, you know, really this, I have to share this with you. You know, I'm in the middle of, my chairman judiciary can appreciate this. I'm in the middle of a trial, a 4-day trial. We've had 2 days, and Friday, the 31st, was supposed to be the 3rd day, okay? And something came up that's cut into the hours instead of getting the whole day. See, so can't you imagine, I've been the whole week of spring break, been preparing for this trial. You said the right word, geeked up for it. I'm all revved up for it and everything. I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to question folks. I'm ready to do that. And then the last minute, it's got to be continued for a couple weeks. Now that was Friday. See, the day is just Tuesday. So that was Friday. That's it. Do you understand now? I'm ready to talk. I mean, I soon as the basketball game went off last night, I went to sleep. Slept just slept. And, you ever know you slept so good that you wake up rejuvenated. Yeah. Ran out of there so fast. I left my bag. You know how we get in? Left the bag. I just ready, get gung-ho, ready to get here. Left the bag. My little car out there somewhere on the streets in a tollway zone right now. I had to contact all the law enforcement to please don't tow the little car away. So they sent me a message about, that's why I was a little bit coming in late. They sent me a message, you all right where you are for right now? Because we were coming in session. I'm sure they knew we were coming in. So as soon as we get out of session, I got to run out there and get my car. Because my pass will have expired once we run out of here. I know what you say. I could see that. All right, now, who's the house sponsor? Senator Jones, who's the house sponsor?
You know, that's a good question, Senator. We'll get you an answer to that.
Oh, okay, that's all right. I'm trying to ask easy questions, so anything requires some work, I don't want you to have to do that now. At all. What time is it? Let's see. Now,
Senator, I got to answer your question. Just out of thin air, just come to me, just like that. It's Representative Treadway, one of your good friends, colleagues.
Yeah, good man. Good man. Good man. You know, it's funny about people in relationships. You know, you just never know how life passed. His daughter and my daughter, they were real good friends in high school. So you can imagine how far as parents we go back and knowing each other. Of course, he wasn't in the legislature at that time, but yeah, we've been knowing each other for a long time. And in fact, it's funny you say that. I guess you and I are hooked up to the hip with him. You hooked up to the one hip, and I'm hooked up to the other. Because I'm carrying it. He's in the House. He's carrying that exhibition driving bill, and I'm carrying it in the Senate. You carrying this one in the Senate, and he carrying this one in the House. So we hooked up. He's doing pretty good. He got a couple good bills he got going with him, So he's to be commended for that. That he's to be commended for it. That he's to be commended for it. Yes, indeed. Let's see. This
Getting back to the bill, this is a very important bill. I happen to chair the Public Safety Committee, Veterans, Military Affairs, and Public Safety, and EMA is certainly an important part of that. Let me talk about the amendment really quickly. We had a friendly amendment put on there, and it basically took out a portion of the section, added some different language. And then I'll just read some of the talking points. I know we're in discussions over here, but just to refresh everyone's memory, the bill increases the state salary supplement to 35% for a CLEM certified director's salary. That's a certified local emergency management or CLEM director. Sets it not to exceed $17,000 per year. It ensures that county commissions do not miss out on federal funding as a result of providing this salary increase. I mentioned earlier that funding can go away in some circumstances if the salary exceeds the $40,000 mark. The bill establishes a process for allowing contracts to be let without bidding during times when a delayed response will cause harm to an individual or public property. And it provides recommendations for the coursework selected by the state EMA director for CLEM certification. And it encourages more collaboration among political subdivisions in responding to emergencies. So that's kind of the thrust of the bill. It's important to note that this is a priority bill for our friends at the County Commission Association, though many are here today with us in the State House and getting to witness the process of legislation firsthand. So that's kind of important to note that they're here with us today. Just talking through the bill, I mentioned this supplemental cap, and once you exceed the annual salary of $40,000 under current law, these localities were penalized and they had to pay the whole portion. In other words, they had to pay for the increase and the portion that was coming to them from the state. And a lot of that's through federal dollars, as I understand it. So it's important for them that we're able to make this fix and allow them to have a higher salary. These people are going through, these professionals are going through certification to better themselves and to be able to work to improve the safety of our local folks And in order to do that, we need to be able to recruit the best and the brightest. So obviously having an appropriate salary for them is extremely important. So we'll just go through some of the changes as our colleagues continue to discuss over here. We've got some technical words on page 3 as we talk about using the word shall. You know, shall and may, that's a big one. That's the first one you learn when you come to Montgomery, the difference between a shall and a may. So largely some technical things here and there. Talks about employing necessary personnel and coordinating with political subdivisions. Coordination is key, not just coordination, but duplication of services sometimes, and a lot of people that have their hands in different things, so it's good to streamline that and coordinate with everybody. Goes into some stuff on bidding and price quotes, contracts. Page 5, line 129 talks about how they need documents of at least 2 price quotes or estimates before they let a contract. Next, it talks about adopting a resolution or ordinance declaring conditions, action taken, and reasons for taking the action. Talks about the Agency Assistance Fund in the bill, creating an organization there for the purpose and conditions set out in the article. And then it talks about the supplement. So it's important to note that when we're talking about all the certification, there's a lot of requirements that go into this. The CLEM certified director, 2 years of college level education, 3 years of work experience in the area of emergency response, emergency management, or qualified military service, 200 hours of coursework. Senator,
Senator, I appreciate you enlightening me as what we're trying to do. And as I said to you earlier in conclusion, is that I fully support what you're doing. And at the proper time, I'm going to vote with your bill. Mr. President, I yield back to the senator.
thank you, Senator Smith. I enjoyed chatting with you, my friend.
Senator Jones, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, if there are no other discussions, move for final passage using previous roll without objection.
Is there any objection? Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 22 passes amended. Thank you, Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 3 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 40 by Senator Elliott relating to county and local government. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Elliott.
I'd like to move the BIR using previous roll without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Twenty-nine ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 3 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 40 by Senator Elliott. Committee amendment pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Elliott.
move for adoption of the committee amendment using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment is adopted. Senator Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 40 deals with the prohibition of the requirement of latent features in building codes, and I move for third reading be dispensed with, final passage using previous roll without objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 40 passes as amended. Thank you, Senator Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 2 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 45 by Senator Barfoot relating to the boards of registrars. BR pending.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for adoption of the BR using previous rule.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
28 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 2 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 45 by Senator Barfoot relating to boards of registrars.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could be recognized.
You're recognized.
Thank you. SB 45 is a bill that I think all of us would agree that we have registrars in each of our counties that do an admirable job, who work constantly to ensure that that our rolls are accurate. And, you know, inflation has hit us all over the past few years especially. This bill would serve as a this bill would serve to increase the allotment or the payment to those registrars from a meager $80 a day to something a little bit more admirable, up to $100 a day. So a $20 a day increase. That's the primary crux of the bill. I see my friend across the way there.
Senator Singleton.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Barfoot, I'm sorry, Senator from Montgomery, thank you so much for bringing this bill. And you're absolutely right. I think that we need to bring this up, and people started working like these 12, 14 hours a day. While the polls stay open 12 hours, you get boards of registrars having to work hours way longer than that on election days and prior to that, and just trying to make sure that we have a free and fair election and everybody is on board. I have an amendment to this bill, and I think that the sponsor will accept the amendment. And we'll let the desk do what they do, and then I'll explain the amendment.
Thank you, Senator.
They didn't? Let me see that. Yeah, you're right. Well, I guess I got to go back to the drawing board. Would you carry this over at the call of the chair, give me an opportunity to...
I'd like to bring it back up today if you think you can get that amendment fixed.
Yes, I would love, yeah, we're going to get it today if we can.
All right.
That'd be fine. I know we've got one other bill on the calendar, so I hope we can do that. We've got folks here from registrar's office across the state, so I do want to proceed today.
All right.
Well, they'll be all right if we don't just get it today. It'll be okay.
So do you want to carry over call of the chair?
No objection, carried over call of the chair.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Senate Bill 45 is carried over call of the chair. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 10 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 66 by Senator Melson relating to cannabis. BR pending.
Mr. President.
Senator Melson.
I'd like to pass the BR using previous row.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
(29 ayes, 0 nays). The EBR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 10 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 66 by Senator Melson relating to cannabis.
Mr. President.
Senator Melson.
This bill had to do with me getting calls from a superintendent back home about several students taking over the counter the Delta 8, Delta 9, other psychoactive compounds. And so this just makes it where it has to be 21 age to buy that product. And also that by doing that, it'll put it behind the counter. I'd like to offer an amendment in the original bill that I passed, there was no punishment for anybody under 21, and this just makes it the same as if you're buying cigarettes or alcohol, the same penalties for doing that, citation at first and then penalties later. So I'd like to add the amendment using previous row if there's no...
All right, first, Secretary Reed receive the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill number 66 by Senator Melson. Replace line 56 on page 2 with the following. Misdemeanor.
All right, Senator Melson.
Mr. President, I'd like to adopt the amendment using previous row without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Melson amendment's adopted. Senator Melson.
Mr. President, I have a second amendment. And what this amendment does, there was some clarification needed on the similar products that are going to be grown legally from the medical cannabis bill. This just says that in the instance that if you're in the integrated system, then you wouldn't fall under Sweet Grown Alabama and therefore be tax exempt because you're from seed to sales. So this just makes it clear that that doesn't fall under that. So I would like to offer this amendment.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill 66 by Senator Melson. Replace line 57 on page 3 with the following. Section 2A, commencing October 1st, 2024, there is levied. Replace line 71 on page 3 with the following. Alabama, 1975, the producer value added agricultural product exemption provided in sections 4023.1 and 4023.4 as last amended by Act 2022-291 of the 2022 regular session shall not apply to any product containing psychoactive cannabinoids.
Mr. President, I'd like to adopt the amendment using previous row if there's no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Melson amendment number 2 is adopted. All right, Senator Melson.
My colleague at the other mic would like to make a comment or offer an amendment.
Mr. President.
All right, Senator Gudger.
Thank you. I have an amendment I'd like to offer at this time.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the amendment, please.
Amendment to Senate Bill 66 by Senator Gudger. Replace line 11 on page 1 with the following. This bill would also levy an 8% tax on. Replace line 13 on page 1 with the following. Psychoactive cannabinoids and would distribute the gross proceeds to the state general fund. Replace lines 39 through 41 on page 2 with the following. Cannabinoids found in hemp for certain age groups to levy an 8% tax on gross proceeds of products containing psychoactive cannabinoids sold at retail. Replace lines 63 through 64 on page 3 with the following.
All right, Senator Gudger.
I'd like to make a final motion for that passage, please.
Would you like to use previous roll?
Previous roll without objection, please, sir.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Gudger amendment's adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Gudger. Senator Melson.
I'd like to move for final passage of SB 66 using previous row if there's no objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
$29 ayes, 1 nay. Senate Bill 66 passes amended. Thank you, Senator Melson.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Barfoot.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to bring back up SB 45. It was carried over the call of the chair.
All right, Secretary, call up SB 45, please.
On page 2 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 45 by Senator Barfoot relating to boards of registrars.
Senator Barfoot.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we've passed the BR. We're on the bill. My colleague has an amendment that I think he'd like to offer, and I'd ask that it be read.
All right, Senator Singleton.
Mr. President, I'd like to offer an amendment.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment, please.
Amendment to Senate Bill 45 by Senator Singleton. Replace line 17 on page 1 with the following. The county. This bill would further provide for the employment status of members of the boards of registrars and for regular hours of operation for the boards of registrars. Replace line 27 on page 1 with the following. Relating to boards of registrars to amend sections 17.3.2 and. Replace line 31 on page 2 with the following. Health insurance program provided by the county to further provide for the employment status of members of the Board of Registrars and for regular hours of operation for the Board of Registrars and to make. Replace lines 35 through 37 on page 2 with the following. Replace line 102 on page 4 with the following.
All right, Senator Singleton.
Yes, Mr. President, what this amendment does is basically set out to say that the Board of Registrars members are not the Board of Registrars members are not county employees, basically. And it also provides to where the state auditor, the Commissioner of Agriculture, and those who have the appointing authority of the Board of Registrars will look at the race, gender, and sex in those counties around it to make sure that there is diversity on those boards. This is basically what the amendment does, and it basically just set out to say that these are not county employees.
All right. Would you like to move adoption of the amendment?
I would like to move for the adoption of the amendment using long roll, please.
Long roll?
Yes.
Okay. Secretary, do you want to speak on it? All right.
I'm with it. I got it now. I'm good now.
Yes, thank you. I took time this afternoon to go through the bill here, and noticing all the major points of the bill that's listed in the sponsor's bill, in which he brings out some good points. One of the things that you and I and others, members of this Senate, has probably recognized through the years is that every time that we walked into the Board of Registrars office, we've got an earful of complaints, a lot of complaints. And one of those things is the amount of pay that those Board of Registrars are being paid. Not only that, but some other issues about health insurance and other things. And if you look at the bill, I think the bill covers all the major intents of the bill sponsor, and I think it really addresses some of the major complaints that suggestions and whatever that you have offered as well. But I think the bill itself is well done, and I don't think that we need your amendment.
Well, let me just say this. The difference to the other part of that is that you would expect that, and not only does it just provide that these are not county or state employees, but also say on working days that the courthouse must be open on some of those days. And sometimes people are not open, the courthouse is not open. We at least got to get something standard to where everybody is working on the same page, and that they know that.
It does bring up, but
you must have a registrar present during those hours, that someone must be on the job, doing the job at the hours that they set that they're going to be open. Now, if they're not open during the hours that the courthouse is going to be open, they got to establish what those hours are going to be, and someone has to be there during those hours.
That's right. But at the same time, for instance, let's just say that the board registrars are scheduled to be there on a certain day, a holiday, okay, and the courthouse is closed. And of course, on the page 2, on line 51, it says the board registrar shall be compensated for the holiday. So they're going to be taken care of. So I do understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But it's in other words, these citizens that's working as a registrar, I just think that the bill itself covers the major points in which I think your house is concerned. I think it's already covered here.
Well, then just to have it here, we go through this exercise all the time. We go and put amendments on. We think it's already covered. Let's just make sure it's covered. Then let's do this since you think it's covered and not certain that it's covered. Then if I put it on, then we know it's covered.
Well, I mean, it goes on discusses the travel.
If it's not going to hurt anything.
Like on page 3, on line 61, the provisions of this section regarding travel mileage.
I have no problem with that at all.
So
I don't address that at all in my amendment.
So if the county having a population of 600,000, so that section's covered. And then when you move down to, for instance, like the other, as far as the census goes, so the size of the city. So I think the Senator. The sponsor of the bill has covered the points well. And
I think he covered the points well based on what he was looking at in terms of pay. What we're doing is we're adding and making sure that these working hours are here and making sure that they're there on those working hours. And then we're also asking that those 3 appointing authorities, where they can, at least look to diversity. That's the only other thing. If that's the hiccup in this bill, then let's just say that. Because the other piece is not a problem with making sure that somebody is at work. I'm sure you want to make sure that they're at work when they're supposed to be, and they're at work on the days that they say that they're going to be.
Right.
That's what this bill does. Yeah. And what it does is it basically stands out in this amendment to say that they're not county or state employees. And and as I spoke to the sponsor said, well, you're right. My bill basically already kind of state those things and is there. I'm okay with it because it really does nothing differently to the bill. But what it does, it at least gives us the ability to pinpoint it in the statute and say that if you have working days, then you should be there on those working days. If there are days outside of what the court, you're saying that the courthouse is open, because sometimes during the election cycle, the courthouse may be closed, but the board of registrars will still be open. So you still got to say that you're open and somebody has to be there on those days, okay? Just like that was time that we did Saturday voting back during the pandemic, and we had people opening up on Saturdays because they could help people get registered to vote because of what we're going through in the pandemic. Well, the courthouse is now open up on a Saturday, but because they had an ancillary office, then they could be, open. I know in my county, because the county board of registrars is not in the courthouse, was not in the courthouse. It was in another building outside of that.
Well, listen, let me just say that a senator from Montgomery... If
it's a diversity piece, then let's talk about that.
Well, listen.
Let's just get down to where the cow's going to eat the hay, because I really don't think that the time and the person being at the courthouse should be a problem. If it's diversity, then let's talk about that. Let's just go and get the 800-pound gorilla out on the floor and let's swap bananas with it.
Well, anyway, I think the senator from Montgomery did an excellent job.
He did an excellent job on this bill.
So thank you, sir.
He did an excellent job.
All right.
Mr. President.
Senator Shelnut.
I'm getting some phone calls that got concerns about this bill too, so with that I move to table the amendment.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? No. Yeah, all right, call the roll, long roll.
I see, said the blind man.
Mr. Albritton.
We're going to be tabling amendments right here now.
Mr. Allen.
Just let the game begin.
Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley, Mr. Bell, Mr. Butler, Mr. Carnley, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Chasteen, Ms. Coleman, Ms. Coleman Madison, Mr. Elliott, Ms. Figures, Mr. Gavan, Mr. Gudger, Mr. Hatcher, Mr. Hovey, Mr. Jones, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Livingston, Mr. Melson, Mr. Orr, Mr. Price, Mr. Reed, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Schofield, Mr. Sessions, Mr. Shillnut, Mr. Singleton.
No.
Mr. Smitherman, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Stutz, Mr. Wagner, Ms. Weaver, Mr. Williams,
Six ayes, 21 nays. The tabling motion fails. Now back to the amendment. Senator Singleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just talk about this piece on you want to go and move it?
Well, unless you've got some words to add on the amendment, I'd move.
No, I've talked about the amendment because the amendment, the part of the amendment to deal with diversity does not say shall be. It just said that they should work to try to make it happen. That's
your amendment, if you're going to call for a vote on the amendment,
I'll call for a vote on the amendment.
Long roll.
Long roll.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
We calling already?
Go ahead.
Senator?
Yes, sir.
We can call the roll?
Yes, sir.
I want you to explain your amendment because I'm confused and others are as well.
Well, that's what I was trying to do is explain the amendment, okay? The amendment number one would deal with the Board of Registrars state that whether or not they are county or state employees. The second part of it provides for the regular hours of operation of the Board of Registrars. And it says that on working days, they must be open on the same days at the courthouse of the county or alternatively establish regular hours to make those hours available to the public. It just said it got to be there on the days that they're working. And then on the third part of my amendment, it said that the appointing members of the Board of Registrars, the governor, the auditor, and the Commissioner of Agriculture must work to ensure that membership is reflective of the gender and racial makeup of the state, which is diversity language. That's what it does. It doesn't say that it shall do it. It just said that they should work to ensure it. And if they can't come up with it, then it just doesn't happen. That's the essence of the amendment, Mr.
All right, so Reed.
Mr. President, I'd call for the long roll vote on the amendment.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Allen, Mr. Barfoot, Mr. Beasley, Mr. Bell, Mr. Butler, Mr. Carnley, Mr. Chambliss, Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton.
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
(27 ayes, 7 nays, 1 abstention). The Senator Singleton amendment's adopted. Thank you, Senator Singleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Barfoot.
Thank you, sir.
Senator Barfoot.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I'd move for final adoption as amended on SB 45 using previous rule. No objection.
Object, you said? All right. Secretary, are you wanting to talk on this, Senator? All right. Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Aye. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot.
Aye.
Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Reed. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Schofield. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
(28 ayes, 1 nay, 1 abstention). Senate Bill 45 passes amended. Thanks, Senator Barfoot. All right, Senator Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your efforts today. I mean, we finished up the calendar. I had some good debate back and forth on topics that are important. So we were able to do that. Appreciate the Rules Chairman pulling together the calendar and allowing us good opportunities to be able to discuss. This is a 3-day work week, as we've said repeatedly, so we're going to be in session again tomorrow afternoon. I know there's a lot of robust committee activity going to be going on from early in the morning until time for us to come in tomorrow afternoon. But with that, I'm going to make a motion that we stand adjourned until tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon. And I'd like to leave the Journal open until 4:45 for any House messages.
All right, you heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned.
Let's work. Let's work.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem.